All right, well, the Young Turks. No. Today's a good show. No. It's a good show. We've got some incendiary videos today. They blow up. Okay? After 5 seconds after you watch them, they're going to blow up. Okay, so be cool. Get ready today. Buckle up, buckle down. All right, is Obama starting the Armageddon? That's a conversation that they didn't have in some fringe conservative website on Fox News. Okay, obviously. So we'll get to that in a little bit. And then CNN pissed me off. Oh, they had this terrible conversation about the internets and its series of tubes. Okay, a little rage there. I'm going to try to control myself. We'll see how we do. Okay? Obama was on The View. In our interview hour today, it's Latino Day at the Young Turks. In fact, I have a big story on Latinos today, too. It's 2 days in a row. We're going Latino heavy. Now that we found out that one out of every 6 Americans is Latino, well, come on, time to do Latino story. By the way, that, of course, did not affect our decision at all. It's just stories in the news. Anyway, today, Roberto Lavato, one of my favorite guests, is coming on, and Gustavo Rivera. Gustavo Rivera is running for office. Roberto Lavato and I are going to disagree a little bit. Roberto's quite serious about not messing with immigrants. Okay, whereas apparently I'm not serious about it. So we're going to, he's definitely coming around to the left of me, that's for sure. Okay, so that ought to be an interesting conversation. All right, now let's get started. A lot of news today. First of all, the continuing saga of Elizabeth Warren, will Obama nominate her or not? The Democrats don't want to. I'm not even going to phrase it as a question anymore. It appears to be a fact. And let's separate, though. Let's be careful here. The administration from the Senate Democrats. In this case, the administration is more iffy. The Senate Democrats seem to be more opposed. Okay, so Senate Democrats more conservative. So they keep going back to Chris Dodd. They said, look, man, Robert Gibbs says she's very confirmable as the head of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Her idea. She came up with it in 2007. Everyone agrees that she would be great for it. It's certainly on the progressive side, certainly on the Democratic side, and as I'm about to tell you, on the Republican side, she has a number of supporters as well. So they go to Dodd, and again, this is the third time. So, what's going on? They're not confirmable. I don't know where Robert Gibbs is getting this count from. No, we'd have a lot of issues with her. Look, let me tell you about the Republicans first, and I'm going to come back to Dodd, okay? Because I'm about to lay something heavy on him, okay? So here we go. It turns out the people that are on the bailout commission with her, the one she led, there's 2 Republicans on the commission. They were appointed by Mitch McConnell and John Boehner. So they're very serious Republicans. And they think that, of course, that they've had their disagreements with Elizabeth Warren, but they found her, quote, collegial, professional, and quite willing to modify her views if presented with well-reasoned, cogent arguments. So those 2 Republicans, Kenneth Trotsky and J. Mark McWaters, say, quote, it takes courage to publicly question the decisions made by members of your own party. And they say that Elizabeth Warren has done that over and over again. She has challenged power where she needed to and listened to her opponents when she needed to and take their advice and counsel. They firmly support her for that position. Appointed by McConnell and Boehner, okay? So now when you go to a former Solicitor General for Ronald Reagan, he writes an op-ed specifically about Warren saying, oh, no, you got to confirm her. It's so obvious she's the one standing for consumers. And the banks don't want her there because they say she would discourage financial innovation. Exactly. Okay, that's what we want her to do. Financial innovation is not like innovation in manufacturing or in any other industry. Financial innovation is, hey, I found a cute new way of gambling with your money. Oh, it turns out that innovation didn't work out. More taxpayer money, right? This position is created to stop them from abuse and theft, etc., right? That's the whole point of the position. And Reagan's Solicitor General says, yes, get her. Now, they don't just stop there, though. People that have praised her. Republican Senator Chuck Grassley, Republican Senator Olympia Snowe, Republican Senator John Thune, Republican Senator Bob Corker. Corker said, Elizabeth Warren's a smart person. There are things I agree with her on, and there are things I disagree with her on. But on that point about a program that Obama had proposed or Geithner had proposed, of course Obama approved, to give away $30 billion to small banks. He said, I totally agree with her on that point. And they're all saying the same thing. We totally respect her. Republican chair of the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, Sheila Blair, she says she, quote, certainly has all the qualifications and credentials for that job. And the list goes on and on. So with all of these Republicans saying, well, you know, I guess, and I'm shocked by their statements. And I don't know if in the end they'll vote for her, right? So you never know. And I'm not saying it's a done deal in that regard. But with all of this seemingly bipartisan support for someone who's actually going to do consumer protection, what excuse do the Democrats have left? Look, so I'm coming back to Dodd now. If Dodd clearly doesn't want her in that position, right? And if you think you got some Republican support, and the president claims to be on her side, but he hasn't made up his mind yet, right? Well, if you kill her pretending it's the Republicans, well, that means, no, then the worst critics of the Democrats were right. That the Democrats are no different than the Republicans, and in some ways more insidious, because they pretend to be on your side, but then they kill reform in the middle of the night in a more clever way. And so then they get your votes from the progressives and they get the money from the bankers. And now Chris Dodd is proving them right. If they can't get it through the Senate, or you know what? The thing is, look, let's not get away from Obama here, because remember, Obama doesn't even need Chris Dodd. If he decides, oh, you know what, Chris Dodd, he's in league with the bankers here, he could just nominate her. He could do a recess appointment. He has many options. He doesn't even need the Senate for confirmation. And some Republicans acknowledge that. In fact, that editorial from the Solicitor General from Reagan says, oh, stop messing around. Appoint her already. Recess appointment, who cares? Do it. We need her, okay? So now, if despite all that, Dodd says no and Obama says no, well, they never wanted reform in the first place. They never wanted to protect consumers in the first place. And that whole agency is a joke. And why? Why? Why don't you want the most qualified person? It's because you're afraid of the banks. And internal reporting is saying, well, they're concerned about what banker reaction would be. Well, that means you don't represent us. You represent the bankers. And that is damning. Damning. Now, the decision has not been made. This is where Dodd clearly seems to be leaning, and Obama appears to be leaning a little closer to 50-50 with Obama. But the ball is in your court, Obama. What are you going to do? If despite all of this you go against Warren, well, that's why we're going to take the poster of hope down, because that means you were joking all along. You never meant any of this. You don't want to win the game. If you don't pick the MVP to be on your team, well, that means you have no interest in scoring. You have no interest in winning. You have no interest in real change. So we'll see how that goes. Man, there is a lot of momentum for Warren. If they overcome all of this momentum, reform, good joke. Okay, now, meanwhile, back to the Republicans. So the Republicans were yelling at the Democrats, oh, you know, they're trying to do this Disclose Act, which would disclose campaign contributions, which of course the Republicans don't want. They want to take corporate money and not let you know, right? And they've been filibustering that. Now, it turns out Joe Lieberman wasn't there for the vote, etc., so they couldn't get that passed. Mission accomplished for the Republicans. So they said, all right, we'll move on and we'll do what you wanted us to do, which is to vote on giving incentives and tax breaks, etc., to small business. Because all week long, the Republicans had been crying about, oh, small business, that's where the jobs are. We're in favor of small business. Yes, that's the vote we want. Not this thing about elections. That's just the Democrats' political advantage. Shame on them. All right, so the Democrats bring up that vote. Today, guess what happened? The Republicans filibustered. I mean, it's a joke, right? I mean, it's hilarious. 58-42, the filibuster lost. We got 58 votes on our side, still a loss, okay? All right. Now, the thing is, the Republicans want this, right? Because it's loaded with tax giveaways. I'll tell you what is in it. Eliminate capital gains taxes for investment in small firms. Come on, that's Republican 101, right? Now, the thing is, pause here. They say, the Republicans say, oh, no, we like this bill. We just want some of our amendments in it. But you say, well, look, if you vote no today and you filibuster it, you know, it might not come back. You might have killed it, right? They're like, oh, well, what can we do? See, the thing is, whenever they want the big bank giveaways, they pretend it's for small business, right? It's actually for the huge banks. Now, this is actually for small business. And they're like, no filibuster. Okay, so one was eliminate capital gains taxes for investment in small firms. Number 2 provision was create a small business lending fund to underwrite loan through community banks, direct money to small businesses through community banks. What Mitch McConnell claimed he wanted exactly when he was standing up for the big banks. When it's actually in a bill, filibuster. Point number 3, create a credit initiative for small businesses to help meet state budget shortfalls. Small business, small business, small business. Filibuster, filibuster, filibuster. It's amazing how full of crap the Republicans are. Now, the flip side is, look, when you look at the entirety of it, I will agree with them on one thing. One of the reasons they say they want to hold it up because they say there's about over $1 billion in agriculture spending in the bill. Now, look, I don't know if they're being disingenuous. I don't know if they don't care about that at all. They're just using it as a reason to filibuster this bill so you don't actually create more jobs so that they can then turn around in the election and say, ha ha, no jobs, Democrats' fault, right? But either way, I agree with them on that provision. Enough with the agricultural subsidies already, enough. So if the Republicans win on getting that out and then pass the rest of it, all right, I'll take it. I'll come back on tomorrow and tell you, hey, turned out they passed a better version of it. I'm just looking for wins, man. I don't care about Team Republican or Team Democrat. If it turns out we do a smart bill that's going to get the money to the right guys without giving away nonsense we don't have to give away, fantastic. So we'll see how it goes, but it might have been killed forever by the Republicans who claimed they wanted it all of last week. Now, one more thing on this. When you look at all these giveaways, right? And, you know, some of it makes sense. You want to stimulate credit. The part I like most is create a small business lending fund to underwrite loans through community banks, because you got to get credit flowing so the economy picks up so we get jobs. That's real. It's not just a tax giveaway. It's actually getting credit rolling, okay? Not every giveaway or not every program that goes to business is a bad idea. Some are good ideas, like this one, right? In my opinion. Now, what bothers me about that? What bothers me is, well, then why did we give all that money to the big banks? Because this is the final result we want. So it turns out they're not doing that at all, and we just have to give away more money to community banks now. So why didn't we just do that in the first place? Why would we give all the money to the top banks in the country who aren't doing any lending, but using it for more derivatives bets? Well, we did that because the banks own the place. There's no good reason for it. And the fact that we have to now spend more money on this program pisses me off. But the reality is we do. We have to do it for the economy, at least certainly some portions of it. And it's so much smaller than TARP. That's the other thing. Why did we allocate $700 billion to TARP, let alone all the indirect giveaways that equal trillions of dollars? Why did we do all that if you could solve it with like $30 billion bill? There's no good answers to that. Tim Geithner is the worst. Every story leads to this. Every financial story leads to the same conclusion. Tim Geithner is the worst of the worst. All right. Now, here's another story I have mixed feelings about. Obama has, launched this Race to the Top campaign. It's about education. Now, everybody has different feelings on this. They want to encourage competition. They want to find what works at the local levels, expand upon it. They want accountability for teachers. Now, that all sounds lovely, and I'm definitely generally in favor of it, okay? But I get some progressives' concerns about it because they're saying, look, that's all good and fine, but if you suck the money out of the system, then you make the public schools even worse and worse, and they spiral to the bottom. And it becomes a race to the bottom, and then you have two tiers. The people who are either can afford or for whatever reason or through a lottery, whatever it might be, are in the top schools that are performing well, but you've sucked the money, the talent, et cetera, out of all the other schools, and they sink. It's a really interesting and legitimate argument. Overall, so far, I'm actually on Obama's side. I think Race to the Top is a worthy effort because we're going to do some experimenting and see what works and see if we can spread that throughout the country. It's not a black and white issue, but I like it, right? Now, in order to do that, he has to take on the teacher unions to some degree. Again, look, if within its own context, lovely, okay? I don't have any problem with taking on teacher unions. Do we want accountability for our teachers? Of course we do. At least I do. So now, my only concern here, and the reason I have mixed feelings, is one, the progressives make a decent point, and number two, Obama can't help himself, right? He's going to come and take pot shots. So during his speech on this, he takes a pot shot, of course, at the teacher unions, and then looks around and goes, Did Bill O'Reilly hear that? Oh, see, I'm against unions. Am I a good boy? Yeah, I'm in the center. Yeah, see that? I battling my own constituency. Mainstream media, you're on my side. You see? I know how to hit progressives. Okay, but it's part of this. I can live with it. Okay, but then he goes and takes another pot shot at the civil rights community. All right, so here's his quote on that. Opposition to his efforts, he says, quote, reflects a general resistance to change and a comfort with the status quo. That's a general quote, and he's saying, oh, I'm coming to change, and I'm going to beat up liberals while I'm doing it. Right? Now, in specific to the civil rights groups, he says, there have also been criticisms, including from some folks in the civil rights community, about particular elements of Race to the Top. Now, why bring that up? I mean, mixed feelings. Maybe he's bringing it up because he, genuinely wants to address their concerns. Or maybe he's bringing it up because he can then turn around to the Washington media and to Fox News, et cetera, and say, see, I'm taking on the civil rights community. I know Fox News, you've been complaining about the NAACP, et cetera, and look at me. I'm taking them on. There's been criticism of my program, but no, I'm going ahead. So I'm against the unions and I'm against the civil rights here. How many gold stars did I get? All right, look, if this was the first thing he did, this whole criticism I just gave would be crazy. It's no problem taking on your own side. You got to do it from time to time. And here I generally agree with him. Within the context of everything else, with all of his trying to please the Washington media and Fox News, it sends out red flags. Just do the program and stop trying to earn credit for bashing your own side. I got it. You're so in the center. We all got it already, okay? And it ain't even the center. It's center right. All right. Anyway, let's see how the program goes. Like I said, on the substance, I'm very open to it. Let's see how it does. And we'll see if the progressive critics of the program are right. And, I know what they'll say. They'll say, well, by that time, then you suck the money out of the public schools, and we're in a lot of trouble. But they're doing it on the local level in a lot of places. So, no, I'm in favor of experimentation. Our school systems are disastrous. We got to do something to improve them. And Arnie Duncan's proposals are not bad, worth a shot. All right, now, speaking of schools, one last story for you in this segment. Nicholas Kristof had a fantastic article in the New York Times. It compared costs of different things in Afghanistan. And first, it lets us know how costly this war has been. And he gives you some context. This is amazing. So far, the Afghanistan war has cost more than the Revolutionary War, the Civil War, War of 1812, Mexican-American War, Spanish-American War, all combined, adjusted for inflation. That is amazing. Amazing. Are you telling me that so far what we've accomplished in Afghanistan is the same as what we accomplished in those wars? Who can make that with a straight face? Do you know that the Revolutionary War in today's dollars only cost $2.4 billion? That's like an afternoon in Afghanistan. $2.4 billion, that's it. And it was obviously by far and away our most important war. Now look, I know it's a different context. We didn't have stealth fighters back then, etc., and we were the insurgents. I get all that. But still, it's mind-numbing to think of how much we've spent in Afghanistan. I'll give you more details. And about what we could have spent it on instead. Do you know that one U.S. soldier for 1 year in Afghanistan costs the same as building 20 schools in Afghanistan? Just one soldier for 1 year. And we've got almost 100,000 soldiers there. It makes the head hurt. You know that one cruise missile costs has the same amount of money as 11 schools. Do you know how many cruise missiles we fired in Afghanistan? You know how many schools we could have built with that? You know how much more goodwill we could have done? And forget the goodwill, how much more good we could have done. They say, oh no, it doesn't really matter because if you build the schools, the Taliban just burns them down. That's not true at all. As Kristof points out, CARE, a humanitarian organization, operates 300 schools in Afghanistan. Not one of them have been attacked by the Taliban. Greg Mortensen, the author of 3 Cups of Tea, very famous in the area, has built at least 145 schools in Afghanistan and Pakistan, and many more that are tents or rented buildings, and the Taliban has destroyed none of them. There is a right way to do this. There is a way to earn the trust of the people of Afghanistan, and it's not with cruise missiles. So more amazing information. Obama, who was supposed to bring us change, right now is spending 6.1% more on defense than at the height of the Bush years. So where's that change? All this money going into the defense industry. They love Obama. They love what's been going on. They love Bush. And all it's, why? Why is Obama doing it? Partly because he doesn't want to get called weak. It's so ironic. He's scared of being called weak, so say, oh yeah, I'll show you, I'll escalate Afghanistan. We have 3 times as many troops in Afghanistan today than when Obama took office. We spent 6.1% more in all of defense spending. When is the spending going to stop? It doesn't make any sense. And there's nothing more bloated than the defense budget. In fact, the guy who agrees with that is the defense secretary, Robert Gates. He pointed out another amazing fact, that the U.S. battle fleet is larger than the next 13 navies combined. So if you take number 2 through number 14 in top navies in the world, combine them, they're still not as large as the U.S. fleet. What do we need this for? He points out, Gates points out, in 2020, we will have 20 times the size of the stealth fighters that China has, at least. Do we really need 20 times the stealth fighter that China has? Maybe we need twice as much. Maybe we need 5 times as much. But we don't need 20 times as much. Why? Because they're making money. They're printing money. Eisenhower, Republican president, the guy who helped us win World War II, warned us. There's a military-industrial complex. They're only going to get larger. And what they're going to want to do is create more wars so they can get paid more. And what's happened since then? More senseless wars that we didn't need to be in, that got a lot of Americans killed, more escalation. The only answer is always more escalation, and so much of our money sucked into that same defense industry that Eisenhower warned us about. Do you know that there's now, in the top secret or people who have top secret classified information clearance, there's 1.5 times as many people that have that clearance as live in the entire District of Columbia in Washington, D.C. Why? Because it's bloated. Oh, yeah, he needs it, and that defense contract needs it, and that mercenary needs it, and this needs it. So do we get what we need? No, we don't. We just get more and more bloated budgets. One last thing. For what we spend every 5 weeks in Afghanistan, practically every child on our planet could get a primary education. Understand? 5 weeks in Afghanistan. If we took that money, we can give every kid on the planet primary education. Another way of looking at it, actually, let me throw one last fact at you, is for 246 soldiers in Afghanistan, that would pay for the higher education of everyone in Afghanistan. For all of Afghanistan, higher education. They could all go to college. Do you have any idea what that could do for the country of Afghanistan? For just 246 soldiers? The more you look at this defense spending, the more you think, oh, hell no. This has nothing to do with our priorities. This has nothing to do with making us safer. This has nothing to do with accomplishing our mission. And it certainly doesn't have anything to do with spending money wisely. This has to do with how do you suck American taxpayer money out and give it to the defense industry? When is it going to stop? I thought we voted for change. Young Turks. If you want a domain name, it makes all the sense in the world to go to GoDaddy.com. They're the world's largest domain name registrar.
I think it's kind of what we call speculation.
No, it's not speculation. They're really the largest. Use a TYT promo code, get a discount. All right, we're back, and I have apparently shocked Anna with my favorite story of the day. That's coming up in this segment. Prepare to be shocked. Okay, so, but first, we start with Barack Obama on The View.
Yes, we do. Barack Obama was on The View today, and the ladies of The View started asking him questions about pop culture to figure out whether or not he knows about Lindsay Lohan, the Jersey Shore. We have the video for you guys. We've obtained it. So you guys can watch and see how much Obama knows about pop culture.
All right, let's see it.
And I'm going to do a little lightning rod, so you just give me your first impressions, okay?
Let's go.
Do you know that Lindsay Lohan is in jail?
I actually know that, yes.
You knew that?
I did.
Okay. Does Mel Gibson need anger management?
Let me answer the Afghanistan question. No, look, I haven't seen a Mel Gibson movie in a while, so.
Yeah. No, the tapes are really better than any movie he ever made.
Yeah.
Oh, please. Should Snooki run as mayor of Wazilla?
I gotta admit, I don't know who Snooki is.
You don't?
Mr. President.
Okay, only one more because these are obviously, you don't know any pop culture, which is good news. We don't want you.
I knew Lindsay was in jail.
You knew that. Here, how did you know that?
I don't know.
Well, wait a minute,
Mr.
President.
Maybe he saw a Young Turks YouTube clip on Lindsay going to jail, Hollywood style.
Right.
Okay. On the other end, I don't know how he missed our Snooki work, let alone Mel Gibson. So what do you think? Should the president know who Snooki is?
No. No, absolutely not. Look, Lindsay Lohan, I feel like you almost can't escape it because it was on television. I mean, local news. It was everywhere. Everywhere you went, it was Lindsay Lohan's going to jail. There were protests about it, as we talked about. So I'm not surprised. But Snooki, if you're the president of the United States, you don't need to know about it.
Yeah, I guess I'm happy he doesn't know it. But on the other hand, if I was president, I think I'd know. I mean, because you don't want to get stuck in a bubble, you know?
Oh, he's stuck in a bubble. There's no escaping the bubble.
Every once in a while, I got to step out to the Jersey Shore. You know what I mean? Okay.
By the way, I tried.
How can you be the president and not know what the situation is?
I tried to watch an episode today. As I was getting ready for work, it was on MTV, and I got excited because I've never seen an episode of it. And I said, okay, now this is my chance to see what all the fuss is about. I watched maybe 5 minutes of it. Sweetheart hooked up with some guy that she wasn't supposed to hook up with. I don't know. It was stupid. And then like 5 minutes later, I changed the channel. To something else.
All right. See, she hates Jersey Shore. That's why she likes that Obama didn't see it. How about Mel Gibson? Are you surprised by that he didn't know what's going on with her?
I was surprised by that, yeah.
Okay, because Gibson's huge. No? Okay. All right. I think mixed feelings about it. I mean, he doesn't know it. Who cares? God bless his heart, right? But in some way, I wish he knew some of the simple things so that he could, maybe relate a little better.
I mean, think about it. I remember when you weren't here, but Shore and a little bit of Ben, some certain things. Michael Shore didn't know anything of these guys you're referring to. Because Michael is knee-deep in all this stuff. You ask him to name senators, he'll name all of them. You ask him to name all the congressmen, he'll probably get a few hundred in,
Oh, definitely. Yeah, no,
but so, I mean, when you're just, if he's on that realm, so if you're the president, I don't expect you to know anything else.
Okay, yeah, Michael Shore, I love calling him our political correspondent, as if we don't all do politics. Anyway, he's hilarious, man. He doesn't know a thing about pop culture, right? He's worse than Obama. So we're playing name game. Some people call it celebrity. What you do is you write down names, you put them in a hat, and then people take them out and you describe them, right? Mm-hmm. And so people put in Barack Obama, Bugs Bunny, whatever, right? Mm-hmm. So Michael gets Gaylord Fokker from Meet the Parents, right? And he's like, he's trying to describe it, if you're gay, not straight, but you're, gay, okay, you're not a prince, but you're a gay lord, He's like, what is this? He's like, I challenge. Challenge is when you think no one else knows the name. He's like, what is Gaylord Fokker? This was right after Meet the Parents came out. Everybody.
Does he ever go to the movies? Like, what does he do?
What does he do? Well, to be fair to Michael, he gambles, and he watches a lot of sports.
So he gambles, watches sports, never watches television other than sports?
Oh, you're not going to catch Michael Shore watching MTV. That's not going to happen.
That's really interesting. Okay.
So
it's kind of weird when he fills in and does the entertainment news.
Well, it's not weird. It's just a different perspective. It's like if you were doing entertainment news with Barack Obama.
It would be like me doing financial news. Uh-huh. Like, I don't know anything about financial stuff. So it would be weird, and I wouldn't know what to say about it. But
yeah, well, again, different perspective. Mm-hmm. Anyways, okay, now Obama was also on The View and got asked about a political question about Shirley Sherrod. So let's check that out. Clip number 5.
We have Shirley Sherrod,
Right.
who was a USDA official who was fired over this racially charged clip that was taken out of context. It was posted on a blog. When you took office, I think a lot of people thought that we were going to get beyond race, but it seems like every single day it's something racially charged. Do you think that we are still in America, America is racist?
Look, I think that we have made so much progress, and I had a conversation with Shirley Sherrod, wonderful woman. She's the first one to acknowledge how much progress we've made. I mean, think about her history and what she went through, her father being murdered, and her growing up in the Jim Crow South, and now she's on the phone talking to the President of the United States, and she had been on the South Lawn for a celebration of federal employees just a couple of weeks earlier. And that's a testament to the progress that we've made. What I do think happened in that situation is that a 24/7 media cycle that's always looking for controversy and oftentimes doesn't get to the facts first generated a phony controversy. A lot of people overreacted, including people in my administration. And part of the lesson that I want everybody to draw is, let's not assume the worst of other people, but let's assume the best. Let's make sure that we get the facts straight before we act.
You know what? This guy is one smooth talker, man. It's as if his administration isn't the one who fired her. Now she's talking to the President of the United States. Why was she talking to you? Because you had fired her for being a racist, which she wasn't. So how much progress have we made if you fired a woman for being racist who wasn't remotely racist? And then he blames the media. He says, oh, this 24-hour news cycle. Now, he's partly right about that.
Right.
But you didn't have to give in to it. The Fox News didn't fire her. You fired her. Now, when I say you, I mean his administration, right? And he's the one who sets the tone for his administration. He's the one that told him to fire Van Jones. He's the one that told him to stop the funding of Acorn, et cetera. So he's the one that's got them all jittery. So they're like, oh, my God, Fox News said something. What would Obama want me to do? Well, he'd want me to throw her under the bus, right? But when he's on The View, if you don't know anything about it, he's like, oh, you know, tut-tut about this 24-hour news media cycle. But look at how much progress we made. We were on the phone. I keep thinking, but why were you on the phone? So, yeah. Okay. Now, finally, we have one more story about The View.
We do. Elizabeth Hasselbeck has a theory as to why older women are lesbians. All right.
Oh, this ought to be good.
Let's go to the video.
Why do you think that is? Is that as women get older, it's just like a been there, done that kind of thing, and I'm open to?
No, I'll tell you what's happening. All the older men are going for younger women, leaving the women with no one.
That's why they're suddenly sleeping with women? That's ridiculous. I'm sorry.
Well,
I don't mean that you're...
So there's a
I'm saying if you're
rise
searching
I don't
for
mean to
someone
be
of
rude,
equal,
but...
like, level, intelligence,
Then what does that say about me?
If the men are evacuating for these younger women...
As soon as you go to get another woman, we'll know what about you.
No, you act like women are in jail. We're not in jail.
You're searching for a companion that understands you, and if all the men who are, say we're in heterosexual relationships, you're looking for that, but the men who are of your age have had similar experience. I'll go chasing a little
being a lesbian, being gay is not just, holding hands and walking through the tulips.
I understand that, but
there are things that people do sexually.
I understand. Okay, thank you for educating me.
Wait a minute, I'm not finished. But I don't think that you suddenly wake up and say, I think I want to do that. You wanted to do it. You were just trapped in a system that said get married.
So you're saying all along. You're saying all along you wanted to do it.
You were gay and you just didn't either admit it or you didn't acknowledge it or you didn't know it.
Maybe. I agree both are maybe happening, but maybe there's also, we've done studies that women aren't necessarily needing something sexual. They're more needing something in terms of companionship.
All right.
Why? She's so ignorant, and it makes me feel bad for her.
Okay, I love that clip. I'm very amused by it, although I actually don't fully agree with Joy Behar either. So let's talk about it. First, the theory that Hasselbeck has is, well, you get older and your little guy left you for a younger woman. What are you going to do? Of course, you're going to go lesbian. Okay, but then, of course, I would ask Elizabeth, as they partly did, so if your guy leaves you, are you thinking, all right, well, time to munch box? I mean, but that's what Joy Behar was going towards. He's like, they do stuff, right?
Right, exactly.
I mean, do you all of a sudden want to do that? just because you're older and your man left you? That doesn't make any kind of sense. So, of course, Hasselbeck is wrong. On the other hand, she's really cute. I go back to that every time. Man, she looks great today. Anyway, now the part I disagree with Behar on, she says, well, look, a woman if she becomes a lesbian later in life, it's actually because she was a lesbian throughout her whole life. I actually think that sexuality is a little bit more complicated than that. I have my spectrum theory that some people are in the spectrum somewhere. So maybe that they were largely straight throughout their lives, but they had, of course, some tendencies. Otherwise, you don't just get out of nowhere and think, all right, I'm going to be a lesbian. But given the right circumstances, they go in that direction as opposed to the other direction. I partly know that because I had a really hot friend, a woman, who used to seduce married women. Okay? Which is really badass.
She was a bisexual.
Right. Now, my friend is totally bisexual.
Right.
Okay, which is, again, badass. What the women that she seduced thought they were straight. But, of course, they had some feelings. But they might have never acted on those feelings because they're somewhere on the spectrum. It's not just a black and white issue. You're lesbian, you're straight. A lot of people are bi, right? In some way. And she brought out their bi side, which is badass. Okay.
It's funny because I remember you telling me about your spectrum theory before, and I don't remember if I agreed with it, but I know I didn't question it. Now I'm questioning it.
Okay, go.
I think there's a certain population of people who are bisexual, and they know it. There's a certain population of people who are born gay, and there's a certain population of people that are born straight. Like, I don't know if there's a spectrum theory. Like I'm gay, but not too gay. I'm leaning more toward the...
Well, our very next story is going to prove you wrong. So it's ironic that you say that because you'd already read this story, right? Okay, but before we get to that, but it makes sense. The problem, you're having trouble with that perspective, and I get why. Me too. When I first heard about the Kinsey spectrum, et cetera, I was like, well, that doesn't make sense from my perspective, right? Because my perspective is I'm really on one end of the spectrum, and I know from talking to you, you're really on one end of the spectrum. So you think, well, I'm straight. I mean, what's the spectrum about, right? And yeah, a lot of people are on that end of that spectrum, right? But as you're going to see with the next story, some people are kind of in the middle. But if you're in the middle, it doesn't mean you're at 50%, or you're perfectly happy being gay or straight, or having relationships that are gay or straight. Sometimes you're doing that, sometimes you're doing this. In a different climate, you might do this. In a different climate, you might do that. You're somewhere on that spectrum. Okay, now, that's my theory. Everybody's familiar with it. Get a load of this story, my favorite story of the day, which I think perfectly demonstrates it.
All right, actor Tom Hardy had an interview with Now magazine, and Tom Hardy was recently in Inception, so that's why they're interviewing him. And they asked him whether or not he has ever had gay sex.
All right, now he has an awesome answer. But first, let me tell you, I already love Tom Hardy. I thought he nearly stole that movie. Okay, he was excellent. I think he's going to have a big career in Hollywood. And he's one of those guys that I'd have, if you're going to love this, that I'd have a man crush on. Like strong presence on screen that I think that's badass, man. I want to see that guy kick some more ass. Okay, now get a load of what he said.
All right, so when asked whether or not he's had gay sex, he says, "Of course I have. I'm an actor. I played with everything and everyone. I love the form and the physicality, but now that I'm in my 30s, it doesn't do it for me. I'm done experimenting, but there's plenty of stuff in a relationship with another man, especially gay men, that I need in my life. A lot of gay men get my thing for shoes. I have definite female qualities or feminine qualities, and a lot of gay men are incredibly masculine. A lot of people say I seem masculine, but I don't feel it. I feel intrinsically feminine. I love to be one of the boys, but I always felt a bit on the outside. Maybe my masculine qualities come from overcompensating because I'm not one of the boys."
Now, in that picture, he was younger, right? Now he's matured a little bit, and I think this is really funny, but looks tougher, right? And now, all within the context of this quote, the reason I loved it is because here's a strong guy, right, who says, yeah, I did gay sex, so what, right? And you know what? It turns out I'm not into that anymore. There's some things I liked about it, and I have a feminine side, and I'm not afraid to admit it. But right now I'm with girls, and I don't picture going back to that. And he actually is engaged to British actress Charlotte Riley. I think that's a really strong statement to say, so what? This is who I am, and I don't give a damn. That's why I respect it. That's being a man. You see what I'm saying by that?
I do see what you're saying.
Right, and it goes towards my spectrum theory. Here's Tom Hardy, and he's like, look, I'm somewhere on the spectrum. It turns out I'm more straight than gay. I tried it. I didn't love it. There were some parts I liked, but I'm done with it. So I'm 80% straight, but I have no problem telling you I'm 20% gay or whatever. He didn't put it in those numbers. Man, do I respect that. That's badass. Okay. Now, what'll be interesting is to see how Hollywood responds. Now that he said that, are they going to be stupid and like try to say, oh, no, he can't be a lead actor or whatever? Oh, please don't do that. That's so painfully dumb, right? I hope not, and I think he was brilliant in Inception and hopefully gets better and better roles. Make sense?
Makes sense.
There you go. Young Turks. Netflix.com/TYT. Free trial membership for you. You win. You get $8.99 in your pocket. It's a free month. We win because we got a sponsor. Netflix wins because they got customers. What are you, crazy? Should you get it? Of course! Well, I'm the Young Turks. I am your host, Cenk Uygur. J.R. Jackson producing. Jesus Godoy directing. Anna Kasparian is here. We're going to talk to everybody today. This is Latino Hour on the Young Turks. We're going to have a couple of guests. Okay, I got to stop. I got to stop. They're coming on in a little bit. I'm probably going to disagree a little bit with Roberto about immigration policies. He's significantly to the left of me, so that should be an interesting conversation. Gustavo's running for office against a crazy Democrat. So, and we'll see if he's got a shot. I can't believe he's not automatically going to win. Anyway, so that's coming up in a little bit. But I actually want to start first with a very interesting AP Univision poll on Latinos in the United States. Now, in this show, we've had some controversial discussions about Latinos in education before. And I've made the point that I think Latinos don't emphasize education enough in their culture. Now, that's very controversial. Go ahead. But, you know, we've talked it out, and I think there's so much potential. And the idea that that stupid stereotype, Mexicans are lazy, is the worst and most idiotic stereotype of all time. The exact opposite is true. But you need to. But if you get an education, you can make a lot more money using that same hard work, etc. We've had some really honest discussions about that on the show. Now, unlike what Eric Holder charges the rest of the country with, we're not afraid to talk about race openly, right? Now, the reason I bring up this poll is because they tackle that issue. Well, as it turns out, actually, these days, 87% of Latinos think that a college education is extremely or very important. For the American population overall, it's only 78%. So actually, Latinos care more about education than the overall American population. So I was ready to come out and say, so I read the first part of the poll, and I go, okay, I guess I was wrong. So, but then I read the second part of the poll. And it says that, and by the way, one other thing about that, 94% of Latinos say they expect their own children to go to college. That's a huge number, 94%, okay? But when you go to people who actually have bachelor's degrees, overall American population, it's 30%, but for Latinos, it's only 13%. So it's much lower. So then, of course, you ask the question, why the disconnect? If Latinos want to go to college more, but they're going to college less, why is that happening? Right? It's a very good question. So they asked, again, in this AP Univision poll. And the answers were overwhelmingly two factors, okay? The top reason for not completing a college degree was reluctance to borrow. And they're worried about getting in debt. And they said that it's cultural. And that their parents, their grandparents said, oh, no, don't borrow money. Getting in debt is a bad idea. That's really interesting, okay? And the second reason not to do it was that family responsibilities. So 52% said family responsibilities. They wanted to go to college, but they had responsibilities, and they had to go get a job. And the killer quote for me was somebody who's Angel Vasquez from Port Arthur, Texas, who said his grandfather raised him and had always told him, you either go to school immediately or you get a job immediately. Like what he wanted to do was he wanted to take some time to find the right school, etc. And they're like, no. Family responsibility, get a job immediately. Okay, so, and then it wound up that he didn't go to school, and he regrets it because he thinks he could have made more money otherwise, and he's generally right. So then we get to the question of, okay, then is this a problem in the culture? Now, look, again, we're having an honest conversation about it, and some parts of different cultures are great, some are not so great. We've discussed a lot of things that are wrong culturally in different religions, etc. For example, in Islam, I've talked endlessly a lot about some of the cultural practices I don't agree with. And when you talk about debt and family responsibility, it seems like a good thing. You don't want to get into debt. Yeah, that makes sense. You want to have responsibility towards your family. That makes sense. But if it's keeping you from doing something logical, if the situation and the context is different than the one you grew up in, actually college costs are generally, I should say, debt is actually lower interest rates. It's actually a very good deal. Now, a lot of people come out of college, now they have all that debt and they can't get a job. It's not fail-safe, I get that. But overall, the numbers show you, if you get a college education, you're going to make a lot more money down the line. It makes sense. I think what I get out of all of this is that the younger generation of Latinos in the country totally get it. But the older generation are struggling a little bit. There was another part of the poll that showed that disparity, right? Where people who were born here, who are Latino Americans, stress education a lot more. People who were foreign born, not as much. And we got to get that older generation to get beyond it. This is a different context. And God, you got a great population that's, you know, and it's not just my stereotypes. We've done other stories, you know, showing working hard. It said we did a story yesterday about it. It's actually, another poll showed Hispanic Americans in this day and age are nearly idyllic version of what we were in the 1950s as an overall country, what conservatives loved. You know, care about family, work hard, responsible, etc. Now use that in a smart way. And we got to help our parents and our grandparents get beyond that. So now, I'm going to do that cliche where when we have a story that's about one of us, one of our ethnicities, I ask that person, so, Jesus, does this ring true to you? Because I know Jesus and I have had this same exact conversation before.
Yeah. It's hard to disagree with a lot of it, especially the whole family priorities. And if you're not going to go to school, you better get a job. That really rings in my household. I remember my mom telling me that all the time.
Yeah, and so it's not like it's opposed to school, but it's more pragmatic in a sense. Like,
right.
Let's go, let's get to earning, right?
Yeah, it was my mom. When I graduated high school, she wasn't. It wasn't like she didn't want me to go to college. She didn't push it as much. She said, all right, if you don't go to college, you better get a job. I ain't going to have you just at home thinking about it. So what I ended
Which is fair.
Which I understand, because for her, it was like, I came here at 15 and I've been working since 15. If you're 18 and you still don't have a job, something's wrong.
Yeah. But at the same time, a lot of, do you also get the sense that a lot of younger Latinos get it? That, hey, wait a minute, why am I busting my ass here when I could be making 2 or 3 times as much if I had a college degree? Or no?
No, I think it's hard. I think it's a hard to point in either way, because I've seen both sides. There's some, like my younger brother who's 10 years younger than me, he's in college already, and I've seen some of his friends who are, you know, they just got a job and they're working at the mall and they're pushing school. You know, they're like, I'll go to school later. Or they're at a community college when they had the opportunity to go to a full 4-year university, and they don't.
Right.
Because they think, well, I already got a job right now and I'm working. They see it as, oh, I'm making money. It's something. But then again, like, you're right. You're missing the bigger picture where you're wasting a lot more time.
Yeah, and look, they haven't done a poll on this. I would be shocked if I was wrong on this. Whereas the Asian culture stresses education tremendously, right? And then you go to any of the top colleges and have much higher expectations. It's not just you go to college, you know, not all Asian, of course, but and maybe I'm speaking from my experience where I grew up, right? But if you told them, oh, I'm going to college, and those Asian parents and immigrant parents like my parents would say, of course you're going to college. What does that mean? The question is, are you going to Harvard? Okay, that's the question, right? And so when you have those expectations, well, then they wind up going to really good schools and making a lot more money. And so we can learn from what's right in that culture, you know, and adopt it, and hopefully all learn together and realize that's the way to go, you know. And so we want to push people in the right direction. And hopefully we're doing it in the right way and not the wrong way. But Anna has a really good point about this too. Anna, jump in here and tell us why you know, it might not just be a cultural thing. It might be the context of where you grew up.
Right. Well, our public education system puts Latino students at a major disadvantage. And the way that happens is the way education is funded in the United States. For instance, one of the major ways education is funded is through property taxes. Now, most Latinos come from poorer areas. And because of that, their schools are funded through less property tax.
Right.
So they don't have the same resources as schools in richer areas. Like, we did this story while you were gone, and, you know, I gave the example of Beverly Hills. Beverly Hills schools, of course, they get a ton more funding because of the fact that it's in a rich area, because properties cost a lot more there. But compare that to South Los Angeles, where property taxes aren't going to bring in as much money.
That's 100% right. And we've talked about this in my context, too, where I grew up. We had a fairly well-off suburb. It wasn't crazy rich, but it was upper middle class, and we had enough money. We had enough money for lights for the football stadium, and we got, I think, a great education, right? And so then we have a step up. Whereas, for example, another team we used to play in football was Perth Amboy, and you go there, and they had a dirt field for a football field, but who cares about that? They couldn't take their books home because they didn't have enough books. Now, are we on the same level playing field? Of course we're not. Why? Because we had higher property taxes and they had lower property taxes. That ain't right. So then you take, for example, in the context of this conversation, Latino communities, which happen to be in areas where property taxes are not as high, generally, not always, of course, and then you say, all right, well, now, okay, go ahead and compete. Well, that's not fair either. But that's a much larger issue, and we got to figure out how we're going to do education in this country without having it tied to property taxes, because that, you know, is an enormous inequity throughout the country that, you know, that a lot of people don't even understand. They say, what? If I did it, why can't they do it? Well, they didn't grow up in the same situation you grew up in. You could take your textbook home. That's part of why they couldn't do it and you could. So we got to figure that out, and that's why I'm not in favor of, I mean, this is another larger conversation, why I'm not in favor of affirmative action based on race, but I think affirmative action based on socioeconomic conditions for whatever race you might be is, you know, a very interesting conversation. Because a kid who's poor in Kentucky or West Virginia, white, black, Latino, it doesn't matter, it doesn't have the same opportunities as I did growing up. And so if he gets the same grades as I do, should he get into a better school? Hell yes, he should get into a better school. So, all right. I wanted you to think about that. Now, one more issue in regards to immigration, Latinos, etc. Lindsey Graham is going to talk about who should and should not be citizen, because apparently he's been made God and he gets to decide these things. Our Constitution says very clearly, if you're born here, you're an American. Lindsey Graham from South Carolina disagrees. Let's go to clip number 10.
If you come across the border illegally and you have a child in America, automatically that child becomes an American citizen. Under the 14th Amendment, 3 court cases says there's a constitutional right to that. I would like to deal with the 12 million firmly and fairly. You can't stay here on your own terms. You have to learn English. You have to pay fines. You have to get in the back of the line if you want to be a citizen. But I may introduce a constitutional amendment that changes the rules. If you have a child here, birthright citizenship, I think, is a mistake. That we should change our Constitution and say if you come here illegally and you have a child, that child's automatically not a citizen.
That is going to cause such a stir.
I don't know why.
Oh, you don't know why? Really? Come on. You want to talk about disingenuous. First of all, to be fair to him, he's proposing a constitutional amendment, which is what you really need. Because some other Republicans say, oh, who cares? Let's just change the law and ignore the Constitution, which you obviously can't do. Now, he would do it in the right way, but not for the right result. Look, that's what's great about this country. I mean, that's part and parcel of what makes America. You figure out a way to get here, and if you're born here, you're an American. We don't distinguish based on race. We don't distinguish based on religion. We don't distinguish based on where you came from. And look, you think Latinos are the first ones to do this? How about the Irish? How about the Polish? How about the Italians? How about the people that came over on the Mayflower? Okay, this is how this country was built. That's why it's in our Constitution. But now people are mad at Lindsey Graham because he's one of the few Republicans who's considering pathway to citizenship. And that's why he says, oh, I want you to get in the back of the line, etc. But then he's willing to consider citizenship. Now, conservatives hate that. So he says, but okay, you know what? I'll do you one better. I might give them pathway to citizenship, but I'm going to take birthright away from them, and their kids don't get to become citizens. So that way he can appease his conservative base, and they could be like, fantastic. You're more vicious than we thought you were. You're also more un-American. And it's a terrible, troubling trend. And once people get to decide who is and is not an American citizen, even though people were born here, that's deep, deep trouble. Who gets to make that decision? Well, JR was born here, so he's fine because, you know, his parents were here for a while. But Bobby was also born here, but his parents, I don't know. And I know he's saying a standard of, you know, if they were here illegally, are you going to be able to prove that? Are you going to go into everybody's parents' paperwork? This is going towards a state that the conservatives claim they're against, a fascist state that is overlooking everything, big government that's looking into all of your private life. I thought they were against that. Of course, they're not when it applies to immigrants, and let's get real, Latinos. All right, just two more clips on this real quick. Graham it continues on stopping the birthright.
It makes sense to me that we're not going to put 12 million people in jail, and we're not going to deport 12 million people. I'm willing to give the 12 million people a second chance after you secure the border. They got to learn our language, you got to pay a fine. If they want to be a citizen, they got in the back of the line. I'm a practical guy, but when you go forward, I don't want 20 million more 20 years from now. So let's secure the border, let's control who gets a job in America, and let's have a system that doesn't reward people for cheating. So let's change our laws in the future so you don't have a magnet to have people to come here legally.
Now, all that stuff I don't think is actually that unreasonable, okay? But what drives me crazy about it doesn't drive me crazy. I get it. The reason Graham says it is because he's in favor of the right thing ultimately, pathway to citizenship, outside of the birthright issue, right? But since he's got to appease that base and say, oh, let's be tough on him, let's do this, border enforcement, et cetera, when he knows that ain't going to work. And then you got to do a fundamental fix. It's frustrating. One more clip, 12.
People come here to have babies. They come here to drop a child. It's called drop and leave. To have a child in America, they cross the border, they go to the emergency room, have a child, and that child's automatically an American citizen. That shouldn't be the case. That attracts people here for all the wrong reasons. I want to be fair. I want to be humane. We need immigration policy, but it should be on our terms, not someone else's. I don't know how to fix it all, but I do know what makes people mad. That 12 million people came here, and there seems to be no system to deal with stopping 20 million 20 years from now. I think most people are fair, Greta. They want to be fair to people. They want to have a system that's fair, but nothing's fair about this system. Illegal immigrants are getting exploited, and people are coming across our border with guns and drugs.
Look, the fix is worse than the problem. To say I'm going to fix this problem we have with immigration by stopping birthright citizenship, then you've, like I told you earlier, I think you fundamentally altered the whole concept of the country to fix a temporary problem. There is another way to fix that problem. And by the way, it was not the Republican way. I mean, I don't want to get too political here, but Reagan is the guy who gave amnesty in the first place, and he didn't fix it. And so that's why we had the 12 million people come in here illegally. And why did they do that? Why did Reagan do that? Because they actually wanted to help big business. And sometimes small business too, but business used these guys for cheap labor. So they didn't want that stopped. That's why they set up the broken system in the first place. So if you really want to fix it, fix that part of it. That's a much better fix, and you don't screw with the theme of the country and the essence of our country, what made us so great in the first place. All right, Young Turks.